Hamjambo, jina langu ni msafiri kwa Kiswahili au Chris kwa Kiingereza. Nimesoma Kiswahili na ninafurahi sana.
Hamjambo, jina langu ni Inat, lakini ninaitwa Marifa kwa Kiswahili. Nimesoma Kiswahili na ninapenda kusoma lugha hii.
Hamjambo, jina langu ni Jackie. Nilisoma Kiswahili kwa miaka miwili. So we did a community-based project where we went to junior and senior high school and we helped out these two Swahili-speaking refugee kids.
So I'll tell a little bit about the school. It's a school in Oakmont, Pennsylvania. It's a combination middle and high school. So kids from 7th through 12th grade are all under one roof. And there's only 430 students, despite it being a public school, which is pretty unique as far as US public schools go, especially ones that are in and around a city. We worked under the French teacher as well as the ESL teacher at the school. And she kind of came on recently because the school does not have a history of ESL students. There's only 11 ESL students in the school between 7th grade and 12th grade, which is not very many for a public school, especially in Pittsburgh. And then the two students we worked with are Swahili-speaking refugee students, and they are the only two students in the school that speak Swahili. We were connected with the school through the Center for African Studies here at Pitt because the school reached out to the center asking for help with these two Swahili-speaking students because they didn't really have the resources to help them. And we were available and willing and really excited to go and volunteer at the school. We went twice a week, Monday and Wednesday, and had a really wonderful time volunteering with them.
A little bit about the kids we worked with. They're brother and sisters who were born in a refugee camp in Kigoma, Tanzania. And their parents are originally from Congo. And sisters in 10th grade, while the brother is in 11th grade. And they both speak Swahili fluently, and they know some French, and they obviously know some English, and they're working on the proficiency level to bring up in English. And some future aspirations of both of them. The sister wants to become a nurse and go to nursing school, and brother wants to get into construction and ultimately build houses. And some fun facts about them is that sister loves to dance and she's really good at it. One time when we went there, we put on some bonga flava and she was teaching us how to do the dance moves, and she's really good. And yeah. And a fun fact about brother is that we learned that he loves bananas, and he also hates American football. So there's a little bit about the kids we worked with.
Yeah, so for what we did, we mostly did two different types of things with them. We would go in for homework help, and right now the kids are on a really interesting curriculum where they were given Swahili translators to give them placement tests for all their subjects, but they're not being given those translators for those classes, so they're being put at a huge disadvantage in the classes. So especially for classes like health and history, the work they get is really complex, so we help to translate that homework to the best of our ability and explain some of those topics so that they can actually learn what they're supposed to learn. And then we do general English conversation, so we'll try to engage in just generic conversations about what they want to talk about or anything like that. Sometimes we'll do cards. There will be cards with different prompts so we can get them to start talking. It helps them get new vocabulary, and it also the conversation aspect has been really helpful because it helps us practice cultural exchange. So sometimes we'll want to talk about something and then we'll realize that maybe it's not something they're used to or not something that's part of their cultural background. So we get to teach them about our culture or different cultures, and they can teach us in return. A good example of that is I tried talking to about chopsticks, and he did not. He called them little trees. So the next class I brought in chopsticks and we got to all practice using them, and it was really fun.
So then another thing just about what we were doing. On this slide, I've included a picture of the whiteboard, one of the whiteboards. This is what a typical whiteboard would look like for us after a lesson. This is from a history lesson about the Oregon Trail, which was a really complicated topic. We spent almost a full week on this homework assignment because it was so challenging. But any vocab words that come up go on the board. We draw pictures. We try and keep as much of the teaching in English as possible to acclimate them. But when inevitably things come up, the nice thing about us being volunteers is that we have the language background in Swahili now to be able to explain those concepts in a way that makes sense to them. An example that I found with this that was a really big challenge was talking about what it meant for something to be transcontinental. On the previous slide, you can see a drawing that I did of Africa and me trying to explain what the Transcontinental Railroad was, and the fact that that's not a word that's super common because there are so many countries in the continent of Africa, whereas in the US, like, our country spans the width of the entire continent. And so that was a really interesting challenge to explain why that type of railroad was so monumental in this era of US history, but a really fun challenge. Do you guys have any other challenges that you want to talk about?
Kind of just like on top of that, there is the issue with history. It's like explaining concepts that don't apply to the African context, and the same thing applies for like health. I think a lot about, they had a homework assignment on fad diets, and there's in Mobituki you can search up a word for fad diets, and it'll give you a word, but it doesn't mean that it actually resonates with people. So just having to really take the time to also practice our linguistic skills and be like, what does it mean to like break down something to the simplest form and just explain it to them in a way that they can understand. Yeah, that's been another challenge, but I think it's proven to be helpful for us too.
Yeah, and also I feel like something I noticed while like trying to do like teach them English and like doing like those little cards is that I like, as I was like, I've seen another perspective of language learning on like actually teaching instead of learning it. I could like see myself in them as they were learning a language when I was like learning Swahili. Like I could tell like they were afraid to say, like speak up and afraid to say certain things in English. And I just like remember being the same way in Swahili class, but I remember just being instilled in Swahili class that you need to like try, and that's how you learn, and that's how you like making mistakes is, and being confident and saying like just saying what you can is that's how you learn. So I tried to kind of instill that into them and just say like try your best you can, and like that if you make a mistake, that's how you learn. And kind of just be on the other side of like language learning was really cool to, and just like see them grow, and like it's been like it was a good experience.
Another really important thing is that we were able to go twice a week. And so Enoch on Mondays would go in the morning, and then Jackie and I would go in the afternoons. And then on Wednesdays, all of us would go together. And so that was a lot of time that we were able to spend with them. It was around 4 hours a week, 5 hours a week, depending on how long we were able to stay. And so we were able to really like watch their improvement in English from the beginning. When the first time I went by myself, the entire lesson was in Swahili, to by the end, we were really spending a lot of the time in the target language, which was really phenomenal for their like learning goals.
And this is just a picture of when we celebrated her birthday. It was really fun. Her teacher brought like cupcakes. We celebrated. We played like this game, like pin the horn on the unicorn, which is like pin the tail on the donkey, where it's just like a common like game that we play in America. So it's cool to teach them like about a kind of like the culture in America, and they had a lot of fun with it. But it was a really fun day.
All right, and we've also, like, one of the great parts of this experience is that we've been able to have more involvement with them beyond just the classroom. So part of doing that was actually going to a conference that was being hosted at a local university to connect both ESL teachers from the greater Pittsburgh region and also ESL students. I've never seen that many like Swahili-speaking kids in one place together outside of, well, Tanzania or Kenya. So it was a great opportunity for the kids to meet new people and see them come out of their shell. Something we didn't really talk about is that Arusha are both really, really shy kids. So getting them in a space where they could actually talk with people and trying to get them to engage with people was really great, especially with Berta. I saw a lot of growth in her that day and made me feel like weirdly, like really proud. Um, and then also for the last day that all three of us went together with the kids, we went to the Pittsburgh Zoo and Aquarium. Um, and part of it was also a lesson for the kids to like talk about wildlife and practice talking about wildlife in English. But it also just gave us a chance to all hang out and have an even more relaxed environment than just an empty classroom to talk and chat and, share joys at staring at penguins. So we've had a really great chance to connect with these kids beyond the classroom. And I think that's what's helped make the classroom experience a lot better and a lot like more seamless.
And here are some photos from the zoo. I have a picture of by the penguin exhibit, which was Walanja's absolute favorite, and then all of us by the zebra exhibit as well. And on this slide, I really just wanted to talk about the importance of doing this type of volunteering when you are a student of Swahili. This is not something that I ever pictured myself doing in college. I didn't come into college thinking I was going to study Swahili, but this has been the most impactful thing for me because I've been able to continue my education outside the classroom and also help someone else at the same time. In Pittsburgh, we have so many Swahili-speaking refugees and refugees of all language backgrounds, and a lot of the schools, this is kind of a newer phenomenon for Pittsburgh, so a lot of the schools still don't have the resources to know what to do, especially outside of some of the big city schools. So it's really important that us as students were able to go and provide help, and not just provide help for 1 day or 2 days, but an entire semester worth of help, because I know that we are now resources for these students in the future. If Berta and Walanja ever apply to college and they need help on an application, we will be able to be there for them and help them. And we're just a resource, I hope, for these kids that they will be able to use for a while. After coming back from Tanzania, Ina and I were really looking for ways to continue our connection with East African culture. And it's great to do that in a classroom, but if you can have, this kind of interaction with kids, especially, who are going to give you an unfiltered view of Swahili language, an unfiltered, perspective on the Swahili culture, that is so much more impactful than sitting in a classroom doing it.
This is really beautiful, and thank you guys for sharing your experience. So I'd like to ask you guys a couple questions. How many weeks did you guys devote to this project?
Almost the entirety of the semester, so about 14 weeks.
Okay. What do you think are the challenges, kids like the ones you guys worked with? What are the challenges, cultural challenges that you think they face when they come to the US?
I can talk about one smaller one, and then if someone wants to talk about like a bigger one after, I think that would be good. But one small one that I noticed that I think speaks to just like the whole experience of being in an American public school is the food. One specifically has this reputation in the school of not liking any foods and being really picky, but that's actually not true. He's just, used to a specific style of food, and that food's not being served at the school. And so the teachers all think that he doesn't like anything, when in reality, like, he eats everything at home, which we've been able to talk to him about in Swahili, but because of his English level, he hasn't been able to convey that, and so now the teachers all think that he only eats like a few different specific foods, and so that's like given them the wrong impression of him, which is unfair.
That's good. Thank you. Anyone else, if you want to share any other social cultural challenges that you think?
I think one is it's about the educators. It's not so much the kids. When you have say there are a lot of Spanish speaking ESOL students at the school, they are a lot more like acclimated to the school environment. And a large part of that I've noticed just from going to the conference with them and things like that is that the teachers know about their culture. The teachers at this school do not know anything about Tanzanian culture, Congolese culture, you name it. They don't know anything about Africa, to the point that one when I got a haircut at the beginning of the semester, he was embarrassed, so he chose to wear a hat to school, which is against school policy, and he doesn't know that. So he just pulled out like Google Translate and wrote, "I'm wearing a hat for 6 weeks. Don't ask me to take it off," and left. Now, anyone who knows like the value of hair would understand, okay, it's a pride thing that he's going through. Or one of the teachers at the school was like, I watched a documentary about Kenya, and for them, it's a cultural thing. He's lost his manhood or something like that. And I was like, he's not Kenyan. He's not from this Kenyan tribe. So there's no like, they're really like conflating their culture, and that puts the kids at a further disadvantage. Because otherwise, I would argue these kids are really open to learning about American culture. It's more so that the people who are supposed to be welcoming them to the space don't know enough to help them get acclimated.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's deep. Thank you. So, what do you think about your experience in Tanzania? How do you think the experience you had prepared you to help kids? Like, do you think the experience you had was really necessary for you to help, or maybe it wasn't even needed at all?
No, I think it was definitely necessary. Beyond being able to speak the language at the level that we are able to, which would not have been able to happen without Tanzania. I mean, Ina and I only spent 6 weeks learning Swahili in Tanzania, and then before helping these kids, we had one semester of Swahili in the classroom in the US, which in the grand scheme of things is not a lot of time, but because of the immersive experience in Tanzania, we were able to make so much progress. And I don't think that anyone else that had only studied the Swahili in the US would have been able to connect as deeply with them because of the lack of linguistic ability. So that's just one thing. And then culturally, like being able to connect with them over music, not only that we learned about in the classroom, but also that we were listening to just on the streets or like in a cafe, or talking to them about soccer that we knew about because we had these same conversations with people in Tanzania, was so important because it kind of lowered the barrier. It wasn't like these academics coming in, talking to them about things that they've studied. It's like, oh, I like this type of music because I actually listen to it, and I like watch other people enjoying it in the space in Tanzania, and now we're able to connect with you, and that would not have been possible without that program.
Oh.
Yeah, I agree. Even thinking about, we've talked about food a lot, but the kids do care about food a lot. And I actually think the first question I ever asked one was like, "What food do you like?" And he didn't expect me to know what he was talking about, and he mentioned a food, and I actually think in Tanzania you had Filipo, you had told me that food is like daga is like the best you get is from the region where they grew up. So I had mentioned that to him, and the way both of their faces lit up, and it was like, okay, I can trust you. It helped us really build trust with them. Again, it was another thing that helped to build trust faster and help us kind of expedite the process of like getting them comfortable to speak English around us.
That's good. And Jackie, I know, some people might think that you need to have gone to Tanzania to be able to volunteer in a program like this. And I'm glad Inat and Chris were able to bring you aboard on this program. What do you think a person like you who just studied Swahili in the US, who has never been to East Africa, what do you think a person like you can still be part of a project like the one you were doing?
I feel like even though I didn't go to Tanzania and I just like learned Swahili throughout the classroom, this also just gave me a chance to practice my own Swahili and learn a lot about like their culture and practice my own Swahili. So it was like they gained a lot from it, but I also gained a lot from it. And I just thought it was like a really good experience just to like use the little Swahili I still remember. I mean, like person, definitely carried with the Swahili, but they also need practice, like help practice with their English. So I was also there like trying to like use my English a lot more so that because that would help them like learn the language a lot. And so I think I like my experience, like what I came from, like also helped them, and like also I gained so much from learning about them and their culture, and that I feel like we both like grew throughout the experience.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. So, Chris, I want you to talk to a group of American students who are probably considering studying abroad in Africa. Why do you think that will be really one of the most important decisions in their lives?
So I love this question because I studied abroad 3 times in college, and then I'm studying abroad again in just a month, going back to East Africa. So it was 2 in Europe and 2 in East Africa. And while my 2 experiences in Italy were phenomenal and I would not trade them for the world, they were so like manufactured, and everyone that was going on that experience knew exactly what to expect and was all talking to one another beforehand about, this is the place I want to go, I want to be at this restaurant, like all this type of stuff. And I felt like the sense of adventure, spontaneous learning about something that's truly different, that's where I was lacking. And so then when I signed up to go to Tanzania, which I had no Swahili experience before I went, I really just went because the program seemed like an amazing opportunity and I was curious. That program was so much more impactful for me because not only was I, getting to practice a new language and learning about a new culture, but also every single aspect of the trip put me out of my comfort zone. In Italy, like, okay, maybe the grocery store uses a slightly different structure, and you have to like grab things with gloves instead of in the US, you don't use gloves to like grab the produce. But in that experience compared to going to a market and bartering for your fruits and vegetables with your host family, like staring over your shoulder, that is so much more valuable to you as a student, in my opinion. And I think that this is not to drag, studying abroad anywhere else, but I think that if you really put yourself out of your comfort zone, you will grow as a person so much more. And now because of that, I'm going back to East Africa again this summer, seeking out like new opportunities there. And I have this support system in East Africa because the people are so welcoming and so friendly, and I'm excited to like reconnect with some of the people that I met last summer.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. And Inat, the question is coming to you now. What do you think? What can you tell the teachers, K through 12 teachers in the United States? Do they really need to know anything about Africa to be able to help the African immigrants who are coming here, especially the kids, the refugee kids who are coming in the Pittsburgh area or elsewhere? Do you think they need to know anything about Africa to be able to help them?
Yes, I think they do. For K through 12 teachers especially, part of that teaching process in college, you see like there's more of autonomy like between what the student has to do and what a professor has to do. You can go through a whole semester without even knowing the name of your student, and it's fine. That's just how the system is set up. K through 12, you can't go like that. You have to have a connection with your student. And if you don't know someone's culture, it's kind of saying you don't know them. These kids come here only having their culture, and it's on you as an educator to have the compassion to care enough to learn about their culture and to care enough about really wanting to connect with these kids and make a good use of both of your time. These kids, they actually were at a different school before, actually at a more well-funded school, and just got shipped off to this school because the ESL teacher there didn't want to deal with them. They were just forced to sit in the back of the classroom and wasted a whole year. And that's why these kids were so apathetic towards meeting us, because it's like, what's the point? But imagine if that teacher had just like maybe done one Google search about Kigoma or something like that. Those kids probably would have thrived at that school and they would have been fine. But instead they have to like deal with all this turmoil of moving around and feeling more isolated in their identity when all that could be solved just by caring enough to learn about someone. And it doesn't take that long. And especially in more metropolitan areas, as we're continuing to see more refugees coming in, it's kind of your responsibility as a global citizen to have that compassion, have that heart, to like take the time and learn. And not even just African culture or just East African culture, all African cultures, all of the cultures of these minoritized groups that you're seeing come into the city, even if they're not at your school just yet, because you never know. You don't have to be super well versed. You just knowing a little bit can really like go a long way with these kids.
That's good. Thank you. The question is coming to you, Jackie. Again, you haven't been to East Africa, but you were able to be part of this program, this project. What do you have to tell college students like yourselves who maybe don't think an African language is an option? What do you have to tell them? Why is it important to learn an African language? Why is it important to be in something and a project like the one that you guys have been part of, even though you have never been to East Africa?
I think it's important because I think it's important to like put yourself out there and not limit yourself. And I feel like a lot of people don't look outside of their own culture and don't want to put themselves out there and learn about other cultures, even though that's like it's really important to connect with everyone around you and learn about other people around you. Like you won't grow, or it's not beneficial for you if you just stay within your own bubble and your own circle, and like you don't grow that way. So kind of putting yourself out there, learning a new language, learning about Africa, will benefit you in the long run and help you like connect with so many different types of people. And it's also just fun. Like it's fun to put yourself out there. It's fun to like learn about something that's so completely different than your own culture. So I just think it just helps you grow as a person, and I just think it's a really important thing to do.
That's good. Thank you. So, Chris, I know you also worked in the Lictor Center. You volunteered, you organized a couple of activities in the Lictor Center, where we now have African and African diasporic language program. What do you think the center can do to people who need to connect with Africa, to connect with immigrants from East Africa and in the African continent in general? Okay.
So the Less Commonly Taught Languages Center does a lot of work to connect students with languages from around the world that they may not have heard about. And it's really important work because when you see that a school is offering maybe a language that either you speak at home or that your best friend speaks at home, but you never really knew anything about, that allows you to have that sort of connection with your culture. In the context of Africa specifically, and African languages, a lot of these languages people don't even know exist. Swahili is spoken by so many people, millions and millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, but Americans still don't know the name for it, even though they've seen The Lion King, or they know, like, maybe they actually know some words from Swahili. They don't know anything about it. And so that's even less so for a lot of languages that are newly offered in the Lictor Center, like Akanchui or Yoruba or Wolof, languages that are widely spoken both in West Africa and also in the diaspora communities in the US. So what the Lictor Center's job is to connect people with these languages and make sure that not only do they know these languages exist, but that they can take these classes and possibly change their academic trajectories forever. We do that by putting on events like the Less Commonly Taught Language Coffee House, where students from all over the university, community members even, they don't have to be students, come and learn how to order coffee and a snack in 25 different languages. And this year we were fortunate enough to be able to offer this kind of experience in Swahili, Amharic, Haitian Creole, Akan, Akan Chui, Wolof, and Arabic. So all these different African languages, people were able to learn a couple words, learn about the culture, and hopefully because of that, they will think about that when enrolling in classes, or think about that even when they are interacting with someone from, say, Ghana or from Senegal. They can think, oh, I learned how to say hello in Wolof at the coffee house. Boom, there's another cultural connection that you can make. So that's why I think the Lichtel Center is so important.
That's good. Thank you. And the next question is going to be to Inat. I wanted you to talk a little bit about the role the Center for African Studies at the University of Pittsburgh plays in bringing Africa to Pitt campus and to Pittsburgh and to the United States in general.
Wow. Well, the Center for African Studies has been doing this for a long time. They connect both students, faculty, and also members of the community with opportunities related to Africa, but also reminding us that Africa still lives in Pittsburgh. And this is a great example of this. We do a lot, like at the center, we do a lot of community engagement. That's a big core tenet of our role in the university. And that means going to different schools and teaching the kids about African history, about East African culture, things like that. For students, I think it's really important to get involved in the center because they connect you with everything. Say a lot of times students don't want to get involved with certain cultural centers like the Center for African Studies, any of the USIS centers really, because their question is like, well, how does this relate to what I want to do? I'm an engineering student and I want to work on, civil engineering, whatever. That's a common excuse students have. Well, the Center for African Studies can connect you with an internship in South Africa to build dams. All of the things that you have interest in at the university have applications in the African continent. And whether or not you realize it, there's always a way that you can apply what you're learning in the African context. A lot of my friends who are interested in poli-sci have done like AU internships if they hold African citizenship, or they've worked for embassies here in the States. And the center does a really great job, I think, of connecting students with these opportunities and making them very clear how you can get them. And I think it helps to make Pitt more of a global institution. And it reminds us that there's a lot of potential in Africa, and there's so much that you can do there. And I think the center has done a really great job of highlighting that, and also working with other centers and departments on campus, like Lichtel, or the School of Public Health, like Africana Studies, all these different departments to kind of help highlight different aspects of how the work that we do there can apply to many different contexts.
That's beautiful. Thank you guys for sharing that experience. And if you have any final thoughts, you want to share any final thoughts, you're welcome to do that. And I'm going to start with you, Jackie. If you want to say something as a final thought, you're welcome to.
Just like in general, or about like this?
Yes, just in general. Anything you want to say? Yeah.
I think like taking Swahili was like one of the best decisions I definitely made in college, and I didn't think I would stick with it originally, but like when I saw it was being offered, I like took the opportunity because like my mom speaks Swahili and that side of my family speaks Swahili, but I never got the chance to learn it. So I was really excited when I saw it was offered. I didn't think I would stick with it, but I'm so glad I did. And it just like being part, like learning Swahili, like made me connect with my culture so much more. Like I learned so much more about things I like did not know about my culture. And like my mom is from there, my family, my grandmother is from there, and I like learned so much more. And it like gave me the opportunity to like connect with my family. And I just thought it was a really great experience. Also doing this community-based project and meeting like the best kids I've met, and they're just like was so sweet. It was such a good experience. I learned so much, and I just think my whole experience, like learning Swahili and being involved, was like one of the best decisions I've made.
Oh, that's good. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. To you, Chris.
I have similar things to say as Jackie. I never expected that I would be taking Swahili, especially not up to level 4, and especially not going back to Kenya the summer after graduation. This all really happened on a whim, but I think that that's the best part of it. I was open to opportunities, and because of me being flexible and me being open, I have been able to do stuff that I never could have imagined, and that would not have been possible without the Lichtel Center, without the presence of African languages at Pitt. And so I just hope that students in the future can have that same level of spontaneity with the decisions that they make in college, because that's really how you find what you want to do in life. So yeah, I just loved everything about this.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Inat.
Okay, well, similar to Chris, I also never thought I would end up taking Swahili at Pitt. And I did just start it on a whim. But what I hope people really take away from this is the impact of giving back. It's one thing to gain knowledge. It's another thing to be able to give that back to people and help people. And there's not much of a use for language if you're only practicing it in the classroom and you don't take that into the world. And that doesn't always have to be going abroad. Going abroad was one of the best experiences of my life. And I would do many things to go back to Tanzania. But knowing that Tanzania is technically, a 30-minute drive outside the city, and I can talk with these kids and, have them talk to me about some bongo flava artists and feel like I'm back on the TCDC campus, that's enough for me. And it means a lot. And I hope that people realize the importance of community service and community engagement, and realize that it's not something that's far out of reach for you. The Center for African Studies is really passionate about community outreach. It's one of their core tenets, and there are a bunch of other ways to get involved with the community too, beyond just the center. There's a lot of different refugee-based organizations here, and I hope that people realize that it's not going out of your way to find these opportunities and have a chance to give back to people.
Wow, that's beautiful. All right, guys, I want to thank you guys again for, first of all, for choosing to study about Africa, for choosing an African language, but also for deciding last year for you, Inat and Chris, and of course the other friends who are not here, for choosing to travel the way to East Africa, to Tanzania, and a few days that we spent in Kenya as well. I thank you guys for choosing to take that journey. But most importantly, I want to thank you guys for taking part in this project. We do get a lot of requests from schools around Pittsburgh areas, people who know something about Africa and African culture, who can help, can volunteer, help the teachers, help the kids who are coming as refugees or just immigrants who are moving into Pittsburgh. This is an awesome job that you guys have done. And I really want to commend you guys. I know you all have graduated, but I think this is going to be impactful. Anyone who is going to watch this is going to be inspired by what you guys have done, by what you guys decided to do. I'm saying that because you were not required to do that. You chose to do that because, like Inat said, as part of giving back to the community, learning and also, imparting the knowledge to other people as well. So you guys have done a great job, and I want to thank you so very much for doing that. And to any of the students who will probably watch this, I want to tell you that you have a lot of opportunities at the University of Pittsburgh, at the Less Commonly Taught Language Center, at the Center for African Studies. You have an opportunity not to just learn about Africa, but also to be an African and to be part of Africa with Africans. Those are opportunities which are afforded to you, by the university, but also by the US government. The students who went to Tanzania last year went under Fulbright-Hays group project abroad scholarship that our university was able to get and take the students there. So thank you very much. If you're interested in participating in projects like these or learning Swahili and other African languages, you're welcome. We teach Swahili at the University of Pittsburgh, but we also offer Amharic, we also offer Wolof, Akan Chui, we offer Arabic, and actually from fall this year, 2024, we're gonna start offering Yoruba. So we're trying to expand our African language programs, but also those who are interested in African diasporic languages, we offer Haitian Creole as part of our program. So welcome and be part of projects like the ones that these friends here presented about. Thank you so much. I thank you, Chris, Inat, and Jackie for your time today in this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, beautiful.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
All right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.